Module 13, the digestive system. Overview of the digestive system. We're first going to take a look at the digestive system as a whole, following the path that food takes through it as it's utilized by the body. The digestive system can be divided into two parts. The alimentary canal, or gastrointestinal tract, is the pathway that food takes as it moves from the mouth all the way down to the anus. The accessory organs aid in the digestion of that food. Now, food first enters the body through the mouth. Thanks to the teeth and the process of mastication, it's crushed and chopped. Saliva is added as the food is chewed in order to moisten it and for some minor chemical digestion. The tongue is used to help move the food around the mouth so that all of it is evenly chewed. Food then moves to the pharynx and then to the esophagus. The pharynx is commonly called the throat, and it's an area that connects to the nose, larynx, and esophagus. Food goes into the esophagus instead of the other two areas due to some fascinating design that I will discuss later. Food then moves down the esophagus and into the stomach, where it's further physically broken down due to muscular movement, and it's chemically broken down due to digestive juices secreted there. The liver, which is not part of the alimentary canal, plays a role in producing material that helps with the digestion of fats. That material is called bile. Once the liver produces bile, it's stored in the gallbladder, another accessory organ, which holds it until food reaches the stomach. Then the gallbladder releases bile into the small intestine to aid in digestion. Once the food is well mixed and churned, it's given a new name, chyme. The chyme then moves to the small intestine, where the molecules are further digested. The pancreas is an accessory organ that produces digestive juice and releases it into the small intestine to help food digestion. I've already mentioned the pancreas in an earlier module when we talked about endocrine functions. It plays a role in the endocrine system and the digestive system. After all this physical and chemical digestion, the nutrients that are now in the small intestine are absorbed into the blood by traveling through its lining. The bloodstream takes those nutrients to the liver, which will store many of them. The liver has many functions in the body, as you've already learned. It makes proteins for the blood, such as fibrinogen and prothrombin. It cleanses the blood of toxins and wastes, and remember, it creates bile, which helps with the digestion of fats in your food. After a majority of the nutrients have been absorbed, the remaining material moves to the large intestine so it can be eliminated from the body. As the chyme enters the large intestine, much of the water is absorbed. What remains of the chyme then is called feces. The feces are sent to the rectum and eliminated from the body through the anus. So that's the pathway of how food moves through the body. It only takes about a minute for the food to move from the mouth, where it's chewed, down into the esophagus. Then after a few seconds, it's in the stomach, where it can stay for 2 to 4 hours, depending on the type of food and how difficult it is to break it down. Simple carbohydrates, such as sugary foods, are quickly digested and absorbed into the small intestine, rapidly increasing the levels of glucose in the blood. But fatty foods and foods that are rich in protein take a much longer time to move through the stomach. That's why it's a good idea to eat a balanced mixture of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins in a meal, in order to slow the process of digestion and maintain a more constant level of blood glucose. Chyme takes up to 4 hours to move through the small intestine, again depending on the type of food as well as the individual. And the time in the large intestine varies the most of all, due to the food type and person. It can be as short as 6 hours, but if the food was made of highly processed foods, void of fresh fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, that material may stay in the large intestine for many days. It kind of makes you think twice before deciding what you want to put into your body. So to sum up, food can be in your digestive system from 9 hours to a couple of days, but because your body absorbs most of its nutrients while the food is in the small intestine, you benefit from the nutrients of the food you eat within about 1 to 8 hours. In the diagram, there's one more organ I need to mention. It's the vermiform appendix. The term vermiform just means worm-shaped, and it refers to the overall shape of this body part. For years, it was unknown what the appendix's role was in the body, but recent research has helped us to learn more about it. You see, your digestive system has thousands and thousands of bacteria living within the intestine, aiding in the breakdown of foods. Their presence there also helps keep detrimental bacteria from taking up residence too. I've mentioned this situation before, calling it a type of symbiosis. You receive all of these benefits from the bacteria, and in return, they get a warm and safe place to live as well as a good supply of food for themselves. So there's a fine layer of material called biofilms lining your intestine and your appendix. Biofilms are composed of the helpful microbes, mucus, and immune system molecules. Now, if you look at the strategic location of the appendix, you can get a clue to its job. It's found immediately below the one-way flow of chyme into the large intestine. Thus, it's difficult for anything to get into the appendix. Now, if you were to have a severe episode of diarrhea, then you would lose the all-important biofilms lining the intestines. But that would be okay because the good bacteria living in the appendix can repopulate the intestinal lining before any harmful bacteria can take up residence. Additional research has shown that the appendix also helps to expose your immune system to the many materials that enter your intestines. There's a lot of lymphatic tissue in the appendix, and so it may behave as an organ designed to fight off infections that may enter the intestines. It would be able to identify the good bacteria from the bad bacteria. Now, sometimes the appendix becomes infected, inflamed, and very painful. This is called appendicitis. A person with appendicitis feels sharp pain in the location near the right hip bone, has fever, and stomach pain or nausea. At this point, the appendix needs to be removed because if the infection is allowed to grow, the appendix could burst open, causing the infection to spread throughout the entire body cavity. Then it could be a life-threatening situation.